All right, welcome to Consumer Informed Choice. Woo-hoo. What a great training this is going to be. There's a lot of questions we've gotten over the last several months about informed choice and what that means. And Nona, knock it off. You're going to make me laugh. So I got to move my screen so I can't see the people because they start giggling, I'm done. We've had a lot of questions about informed choice and what that means and how it applies to the VR process. So today, Jamie and I are going to hopefully provide you with some information and answers on that. So the webinar objectives, we want to increase understanding of what consumer informed choice is and how it is related in the VR process. We want to increase the understanding of how to ensure consumer informed choice during the VR process. So not only is it what it is, but how do we use it during the VR process, and then where do we apply it? So at what points do we have to include it in inform or in the VR process to make sure that our consumers are getting their voices heard? So right up front, I want to throw out some clarifications for everybody. We've had a very long discussion amongst the team, and we've also included RSA in that discussion. And so the CFR 371 is what guides the AVERS program. That's the only regulations that we utilize under AVERS program. Now we reference other regulations, but the CFR are the ones that 371 are the ones that we follow for the AVERS programs. 361 guides the state VR program. So when it was all shuffled out in the end, we under AVERS were provided 371 as our guidance, and 361 for all intensive purposes has non-existent now for AVERS programs. It only provides guidance and governance for state VR programs. Excuse me. Both regulations define and implement the same statute, which is consumer informed choice. So as we go through the presentation today or the webinar today, we're going to reference 361 as reference in clarifying or describing informed choice more clearly than what 371 does. 371 has it, but in some instances it's not as clear as it could be. So 361 really lays out that clarity for us. 361 does not supersede 371 for the AVERS programs. Just again, 371 is our guidance for AVERS, not 361. If you want statutory language, please look at section 7, 102, and 103 of the Act. That defines and clarifies the informed choice. And for implementation, we will use 371 under AVERS programs. So if any questions about that, please let us know. It's a kind of a slippery slope between 371, 361, and the point of reference back and forth. So we want to help you understand it the best we can. All right, Jamie, you're on.
Right. Now that we have beaten that dead horse to death, let's go on and talk about 371. What is consumer informed choice? So in American Indian Vocational Rehabilitation Services programs, that AVERS programs are designed to provide vocational rehab services that are culturally appropriate to American Indians with disabilities who reside on or near federal or state reservations, consistent with such eligible individuals' strengths, resources, priorities, concerns, abilities, capabilities, interests, and informed choice, so that such individuals may prepare for and engage in high quality employment that will increase opportunities for economic self-sufficiency. So this is a definition of informed choice, what it means to us in AVERS. And this is from the section 121 of the Rehab Act. And,
Excuse me?
Excuse me?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I can't really hear that well. It's not coming out clear. I just need to kind of speak up some more.
Okay, I apologize.
Thank you.
So for the definition for informed choice, this is what we refer to in 371. And when we were creating this presentation, we wanted to make sure that we clarified what informed choice is, where we apply a informed choice, and how to apply it to a vocational rehabilitation case. So today's presentation is going to be a lot of discussion of what informed choice means to you as a counselor or as an AVERS program staff member. We are putting the regulation up so that you know what we're referring to, but we want to hear from you guys how you're implementing informed choice in the VR process. We can go to the next slide.
Can you just speak up a little
And-
bit louder?
Sure.
Thanks.
I'm not sure what's going on with my speaker. How about now?
Jamie,
Still
you might want to, if you go to the bottom left where the mute button is and you click the up caret and you go to audio settings,
Mm-hmm.
then there should be a microphone setting and then input volume. And you can just drag that slider to the right. It'll make you louder.
Okay. Yeah, I've been sliding that thing to the right, but I don't know what's going on. Wayne, you may have to do most of the talking.
I don't know. I can hear you okay. This is Paula.
I think she set it up trying to get out of this. But
Go
I
ahead,
think-
Jamie. You just need to just speak a little bit louder, but we can hear you.
Okay. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
use
yelling.
that's right. Use your voice like you're talking to your husband, and we'll all hear you.
No, no.
The other part is you might be a little bit further back from your microphone than normal.
Yeah.
So
Actually, I feel like I've got my camera like right up there.
So when we talk about what is what is consumer informed choice, 371.43 is what helps us talk about or gives us some of the definitions and how it applies to the program. So each individual who is an applicant for or eligible to receive vocational rehab services must be afforded the opportunity to exercise informed choice. And this is throughout the entire VR process. It's not just the beginning. It's not certain points. It's throughout the whole process. And really what it stems from is the old medical model when we had the expert mentality, assigning all this services or services to our consumers. It really ensures that we bring the consumers to the table with us and we hear their voice instead of just telling them what's going to happen. And it's a good thing to have in your policies and procedures to have that informed choice defined and how you're going to provide it. So there's clear definition for your staff to follow. All right, Jamie, want to try again or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I'm gonna try again. I'm seeing in the chat box, a lot of people say they can hear me just fine. So I'm not sure if it's on the user's end. Maybe folks need to adjust their volume. Anyway, when we talk about applying a consumer informed choice, we defined it. So what it was, we defined in 371. And then we're looking at how to apply consumer informed choice. So different areas that we apply consumer informed choice would be eligibility. That's one area. And if you look at 371.44, where it says, what are the special requirements pertaining to the protection, use, and release of personal information? And it states there in number 2, all applicants, eligible individuals, and as appropriate, those individuals' representatives, service providers, cooperating agencies, and interested persons are informed through appropriate modes of communication of the confidentiality of personal information. So when we're gathering medical documentation, we're getting the ROIs completed and filled out and getting all of that information initially to start the eligibility determination. This is a good area to apply informed choice because we want to communicate to the consumer, that their information is confidential. It's their personal information, not ours, and they are in control of it. And so by accessing their information and asking them to sign releases for this information, we're asking them for their personal information, and we need to make sure that they understand they are in control of their personal information, not us. And if you look at 361.38, there is a very descriptive definition about the ROI. And if this is too vague and you'd like some more information on that, you can go to 361.38.
Jamie,
Yes.
I wanted to add that for those individuals on the webinar today, if you are a new director or a new staff member and you want to know what was in the grant application, you would go to your what was submitted in the grant. So the special application requirements will list out areas that were required when you submitted the grant, or whoever, when your tribe submitted the grant, and how they are responding. So this section 371.44 is in that part of your grant application. So read what was submitted in the grant. And if it's vague, that would be the further discussion with your director, or it should be laid out in your policies and procedures as well. But this is in your grant application, anything that has to do with the special application requirements.
Okay, Wayne, you want to review the next slide?
Okay. So when we look at definitions, 371.6, for assessment, it's for determined eligibility and vocational rehab needs as appropriate for each case. So that really doesn't capture what we want to incorporate with informed choice. So we go to 36142, and that gives us a little bit clearer understanding of what that means. And informed choice under this section really, or under this heading, applies to the most integrated setting possible, consistent with the individual's needs and informed choice. So we take into account what that individual wants to do as far as, I'm sorry, I'm off on the wrong one, eligibility. When we're looking for eligibility, we talk about their provider, who they're going to. I was going down the work path, not eligibility. So I want to correct that. Sorry about that. When we look at eligibility, we're looking at their provider they use. In a lot of cases for us, when we're having those discussions, we talk about getting a psych eval or something like that. And a lot of people don't want to go to the behavioral health that's local because confidentiality isn't always maintained. So in that situation, they might request to go off res and see a provider or even a different provider in a different town, even on the reservation. So in that situation, that would be the informed choice that we're looking at. What provider they want to go to complete the assessment for eligibility to allow us to determine if they're eligible for the program or not.
I see some comments over in the chat box, and I think Lee, Dr. Gassioma, do you want to comment here? You were saying ask the participants.
Yes, I sent out a comment, and this is to the participants. My question to you is, do you have a copy of the 371 regulations? And has it been reviewed by the program staff at any time? More importantly, with the 371 regulation requiring that certain types of policies and procedures be included in your AVERS program policies and procedures. Have you updated your policies and procedures to include these specific requirements?
Does anyone have a comment? Would anyone like to respond to that? Oh, I see Amanda says yes. but she's not sure whenever the last time staff reviewed the regs. That's probably pretty common, I would say. Anyone else have a comment? So let's go on to the next area where you could possibly apply consumer informed choice. And the recommendation is that you do apply consumer informed choice at this step of the VR process, and that is the IPE. If you look at 371.21, where the special application requirements, in section E, it states all vocational rehabilitation services will be provided according to an individualized plan for employment, which has been developed jointly. So we know that the consumer is involved in the development of their IPE. But if you look at 361.46, and it specifically talks about the content of the IPE, it states, that there are mandatory components of each IPE, and it includes a description of the specific employment outcome that is chosen by the eligible individual and is consistent with, as Wayne refers to, the Great Eight, the consumer's unique strengths, resources, priorities, concerns, abilities, capabilities, career interest, and informed choice. So we want to make sure that the content of the IPE is an area that the consumer is aware and realizes that their contribution to the IPE is needed. As a counselor, we don't just create an IPE and hand it to the consumer and say, here, sign it. They develop the IPE along with their counselor. So it also has to be a specific timeline. And this is some of the content that you can also discuss with the consumer and provide informed choice at this step of the VR process. Discuss the timeline with them of the IPE, the length of time from beginning to end, an estimate of what time frame that it may take to complete the IPE. Also, the service providers that are included in the IPE, any evaluation of the progress of the IPE, also discuss the responsibilities of the consumer and of the agency itself, of the program or the consumer. Also discuss comparable benefits and the consumer's required participation in the development of the IPE. These are all areas for great opportunities to apply consumer informed choice. And I see we have some comments over here too. Suzanne, yeah, that's a great idea, Suzanne. She said that now may be a time to set up a schedule for reviewing policy and procedures and regulations. That some programs have forums also for the consumer to develop their own IPE. I've seen that. I've seen a written document that can be printed and completed by the consumer, and then at the next IPE development meeting discussed. And then Miranda also says, yes, my supervisor reviews the regs, shares great examples of client services and community resources with me over several weeks during my training period. And we also have a copy of the act and the regulations. That's great, Miranda. Thank you for sharing that with us. Do you want to go on to the next slide, Wayne?
I did.
Okay. You want to discuss this? I know you're the IPE man.
So when we talk about developing the individual plan for employment, we have to include informed choice as part of it. And a lot of our IPE forms in the previous training, when we talked about the VR process, on the forms, there's a statement at the bottom that identifies an opportunity for the consumer to put in their thought in their consumer voice. So that is how we can recognize on the IPE that is being done and fully implemented. But during that developmental process, the consumer has to be at the table. They have to be there to present their ideas. They have to identify the work goal, what they want to do, how they want to pursue it. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to do that work goal, because we end up having to make sure that their disability is compatible and those types of things. So it doesn't tie us into pursuing that work goal. It does allow them the opportunity to voice what they want to pursue. And then we can have discussions around that. Services, who they want to provide that, who they want to provide that service to them, where they want to buy the supplies, those types of things are all part of the informed choice process in the VR, or in the development of the IPE. And again, for clarification reasons, our reference 36145 is what also talks about the IPE development and what's needed in it.
Mhm.
So in the provision of services, again, there's no clear connection to 371 in the service provision. So for clarification reasons, we have 36147 in there. And that just kind of documents or discusses what that means. I covered it in the last slide where I said we have to talk to them, right? So we have to include that consumer in deciding what services they feel they need, who they want to provide those services to them, where do they want to purchase the supplies or the tools or the equipment that they need, the books for college, those types of things. That's all part of the informed choice, and making those decisions and moving the case forward in the provision of services.
And I wanted to comment, if you'll go back one slide, Wayne,
Oh, sorry.
when we're completing the VR process materials and resources that we're going to roll out to the AVERS programs, probably this coming spring, we're going to have additional information in the training materials for like case note examples, different things like that you could refer to when you're making a record of services. Sorry, Wayne, I just wanted to throw that in there. And then continuing on about provision of services, in 371.21, under special application requirements, section 8 says, any comparable services and benefits available to American Indians with disabilities under any other program which may meet in whole or in part the cost of vocational rehabilitation services will be fully considered in the provision of vocational rehabilitation services. So this is another area when we're looking to apply consumer informed choice to the VR case, and specifically in the IPE development and provision of services, we're going to look at comparable services and really discuss with the consumer how they can access resources, and how they can look at different comparable services that will add to their plan. And if you look at 361.53, it specifically spells out comparable services and benefits. And it says here that during the counseling and guidance process, including information and support services to assist an individual in exercising informed choice, that if comparable services or benefits exist under any other program and are available to the individual, we need to ensure that this discussion takes place with the consumer so that they can understand for themselves how to access these resources, where these resources are, and how those are applied to their IPE. And Suzanne has a question. She wants to know, what does informed choice mean to each of you? So to each of you that are participating in today's webinar. I think she said she'd like to hear from you all exactly what does informed choice mean to you. Is that correct, Suzanne?
She gave a thumbs up, Jamie.
This is
Okay.
Carrie. This is Carrie. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, what I feel that informed choice, what informed choice has always meant for me, or how I understood it, is exactly what you have presented in that each participant, each consumer, having that ability to be a part of their program, or the okay, starting with even the application part of it, and then going on into eligibility, like always having them involved, being an active participant, so that they're knowing what process is taking place, and they can voice their concerns, their ideas, making, like, letting them be in that driver's seat is how I kind of can relate to it, I guess you could see. And you're just pretty much their passenger, and their ability to make that um, decision, or think out their plans, or talk out their plans even. And as you've said earlier too, even though there might be some areas that we feel that could be a little bit ironed out or straightened, however you want to put it, it is still something that they've voiced, like whether it be a project goal, a service that they had wanted, or they might want it to work towards, but maybe they have limitations in that, but you still are able to work with them. So overall, it's just having them know that they have that. I mean, it's valuing their voice, that it is what they are working towards. I mean, it's part of their thing. I hope I'm making sense, but just a lot of things are rushing through my head as I'm trying to explain it, but that's how I understand it.
Perfect. I think you absolutely have a exact grasp of what informed choice is. Anyone else would like to add to that?
Jamie?
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is Lee. Very well said, Carrie. How I view informed choice is the regulation is there, yes, but how we actually operationalize the regulation, I believe, is a different matter. And just adding to what you said, Carrie, what I look at informed choice as a VR counselor would then be looking at their behaviors as they participate in their decision making. Are you now starting to see a increase self-confidence, their ability to be comfortable in expressing their need, their ability to share their priorities with you, their concerns, their career interests? Um, I believe the transformation is evident when you work with an individual who may first come in as a shy person, not having a whole lot to say, maybe even just the gestures are not there. You don't see the excitement or the smile on their face, but when you know you have made a connection with your consumer or your client, then I believe it adds a dimension that only can come about if you build a trusting relationship and let the consumer know that you are that you will be there throughout the whole VR participation.
Absolutely, Lee. And you're voicing exactly what I was thinking. How many times as a counselor, how many counselors on here have seen the consumer emerge throughout the VR process? Their confidence increases once they really become involved and understand this section or this portion of the VR process, consumer informed choice, that they are in control of their own destiny. I think that this just makes such a difference when providing VR services and allowing that to happen naturally.
Paula,
Any other comments?
this is Paula. I think that providing them the information they need to make decisions, informed decisions. I don't want to say good decisions because it's really their decision once they're provided with the information they need. So, but we have to make sure when they make those choices, when consumers make choices, that it doesn't exacerbate their disability, that it doesn't hurt or harm them. So for instance, if somebody has a back injury and we provide them with all the information necessary and they want to go into a field that may exacerbate that disability, we may have to help influence that decision. But for the most part, they're making informed decisions based on the information provided.
That's right. And that's when we also make sure that not only along with the freedom to make choices in their own lives and in their career paths, along with that freedom also comes the responsibility. So, always informing the consumer of their responsibilities is also, the other side of informed choice. Any other comments?
Well, Rachel put in the chat box also at times the discussion is needed that TVR can't always get someone to their overall goal. While the Secretary has placed emphasis on helping individuals with disabilities be included in the STEM fields, that doesn't mean we can always fund someone becoming a doctor, for instance, even if it is compatible with their disability with accommodations and or services. However, there might be some of that because of the severity of their disability. The level of training might be what is needed to become competitive in the world of work. So it might be reasonable to have an active case with them through an advanced professional degree, even though other funding would have to be sought for them. So there can be informed choice, but that doesn't mean we always can fund it all the way, which is great, a great point. And that's kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier about supporting goals and that type of thing. Yeah, there's sometimes we're just not able to go the full distance due to funding. However, they have that right to make that choice in pursuing that goal.
That's correct. And then again, talking about comparable services, it is their responsibility to make sure that they investigate any comparable services or benefits that they are qualified for. And I think we just get more and more into what the responsibility of the consumer is, as well as the counselor or the AVERS program staff. Thank you so much, Rachel, for those points.
Jamie, this is Otter. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what I like to practice with informed choice is sometimes with some consumers, I like to practice reintroduction to reality. And what I mean by that is sometimes our consumers approach us without a sense of grasp of what reality is available for them. We have such individuals with high levels of mental disabilities, they can't see their own limitations. So with the introduction of reality, applying that within informed choice, it is like I said, it's a living, breathing document. And you do it step by step by step, because you don't ever want to overwhelm your consumers.
Yes. Great point. And I absolutely agree with you. And I'm sure everyone on here does. I think we all as counselors have had a consumer that, had these great expectations of how we were going to resolve all of their roadblocks to employment, and they were going to, achieve this employment goal that was, possibly out of their reach. But you're right. You're absolutely right. There has to be a reality check at some point of what is achievable employment goal. And sometimes it's difficult to have those conversations, but that's why it's so important that we provide counseling and guidance throughout the entire VR process so that we can help the individual, better understand what is and isn't an appropriate employment goal. And I think it was Paula that said earlier, was it you, Paula, or someone else said, we don't want to set them up for failure. We want to help them achieve their employment goal. And like you said, the reality check sometimes has to be applied. So thank you so much for that comment.
Hi, this is Teresa.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Hi. I think another thing that's kind of can become stressful is the state DVR has more money than tribal VR. And when a consumer has heard from a friend what the state has done and they want like services, that is kind of hard. And so when we go back to partnership with the state, sometimes we have become the maintenance side of things, and sometimes the maintenance can be more expensive than the tuition, books, and fees. So I had to go back and work with the state regional manager and tell him that that's not who we are. I'll bet it's significant services, but when you become the maintenance side, and that is what the state DVR counselors are expecting and want from you, it becomes stressful. Or the consumer has already heard from another person what the state has done, and sometimes it can be pretty significant, to the tune of $100,000 on a couple of examples that I have had with state DVR, and that's just not something we can do. So what do? We look in-house and partner with 477 on education, TANF or employment and training for general assistance. But I think some of the stressors that come with partnering with the state is they have great informed choice, but sometimes the financials are not always there for us. So it is a process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Absolutely. You really did put that into a way that I think we all have been there and have had that consumer that for whatever reason, we were not able to provide the services that they were expecting. And it is difficult, when we're struggling with funding, and then you do have individuals that say, well, you provided this for so-and-so, why can't I get the same thing? So it's very hard as a counselor to have those discussions. Should we move on, Wayne?
So 36156 talks about employment. Again, with 371, it's kind of all looped into that special applications and definitions. So when we talk about bringing informed choice into employment, it really focuses on that employment goal and what they want to, what employment position they want to find, they want to pursue, and all the services required to get into that position. So the first question that always comes to my mind when we talk about employment informed choice, if they come in and they say they want to be an astronaut, and we say, well, that's kind of a difficult decision to make at this point because, well, NASA shut down their their flight to, program. You can't really be an astronaut. Well, that's what I want to be. Does that mean that we as an AVERS program have to support that goal? Because that's informed choice, right? That's the choice that the consumer has made. And so I guess that's my question to you all is, do we have to support that goal?
You might want to define how you mean support, Wayne, because we can support the person and we can help them maybe. Well, I think maybe I'm answering the question and not leaving it for others. Sorry about that. I'm going to leave it there.
This is Karen. I had a consumer who had some very specific physical disabilities and was getting older. He was turning 60, and he got out of prison and he wanted to resume his career as a small business house painter. Well, given his current level of disabilities, I could not, in good conscience, support something that would kill him, because it would have.
Yeah.
And I told him, you are one of the things that we could do, because we did a physical functional assessment, and it was suggested that he work at a paint company for someone else in a trial work experience to see if he could even manage to work an 8-hour day. And he refused any offer of support that I gave him to reach this potential goal, to look at it, to examine it from all angles. And so I said, I can't support this goal. We can help you retrain to do something else. We can find some other, sit-down jobs that you could do. But he could not change his mind. He didn't know anything else. And so he ended up not doing that, but he also went into something else that I really couldn't support, because it all required too much physical labor. In the end, he ended up back in the hospital having another surgery, and I think he's maybe going on full disability now. So sometimes we have to say no, because we don't, our job is not to harm someone and support them in things that will harm them. But sometimes it's in transitioning them to something else that they can do, or find a way to help them find the training and offer them those options. So it's also a point of mourning sometimes what we can no longer do because of disabilities. Knowing what our limitations are is as important as knowing what we're capable of.
Thank you, Karen, because that really, to me, that's informed choice. That's the full part of informed choice is having the opportunity to learn about ourselves, as well as choosing what services we're going to participate in and what providers we're going to participate with. That's incredibly important, and I like your answer, and it goes along with what Paula and Rachel had both said previously. We can always sit down at the table and have a discussion. That is what is guaranteed. You will be able to put your input into our discussion as a consumer and moving your case towards employment or towards services or towards eligibility, whatever step of the process you're in. So that is the important part of informed choice. So when we look at the overall picture of employment, it starts at IPE, where we start talking about vocational goals, the service providers, or the services that are going to be provided, where it's going to happen. Always keeping in the back of our mind that we have to be in the most integrated setting in the community as possible. And we end with obtaining that employment. So during employment, informed choice doesn't stop. They still get to make decisions every day about how they work, what they work, are the work expectations within their abilities and limitations. That's all part of their input that we are hopefully fostering through our counsel and guidance as we've moved through the case. Because at some point we want to back out of the case, which is the next slide. You like how I led that up? That was pretty good, wasn't it? So I'm just kidding. The in closure, we still have informed choice, and consumer informed choice during closure is kind of slippery. We had a really good discussion earlier this morning about it. At one point, is it even part of closure? Well, yeah, it is, because informed choice is informing that individual of options and allowing them to make a decision. So it's informed choice, as clear as the definition can be. And so in closure, we provide that through two forms of attempted contact, where we talk to the individual and say, hey, look, you've been employed for 90 days. You're above minimum wage, at or above minimum wage. And your employer says there's no more issues on their side, and you said that you're comfortable here. So that means we're closing your case. You've been successfully rehabilitated and gained successful closure or successful employment leading to closure. That is the informed choice part of closure. We don't have to have their permission to close their case. Okay. We like to have their agreement, but it's not necessary to close that case, because a lot of times we get people that are scared of that success and they want to have that support that's in place. So they will never agree to closure. They want us to stay there to support them because it feels like your fuzzy warm blanket, right? It's really nice, it's comfortable, and they feel like that they're going to be successful. We don't need them to agree. We can close their case. Under post-employment services, if they come back in and they qualify for post-employment services, informed choice is still in place. They get to choose what service they feel they need. They get to choose who's going to provide that service, and they get to choose the length of time of that service provision. They all are part of that decision process. Now, because Volk Rehab is the one that has the funds, and they're paying for the services to take place in some cases, we get to agree or disagree with that and provide those services as allowable under our policy and procedure and our own guidelines. But that doesn't negate the fact that the consumer gets to come to the table. They get to sit down with us and say, I need this, this, and this. And we can negotiate that at that point. Jamie, anything else you want to add to that? You're muted.
Talking and muted at the same time. No, Wayne, I think you covered that. I mean, absolutely. I feel like consumer informed choice is part of closure as well as post-employment. And throughout the VR process, all the way up to closure, I feel like that, this is another area that consumer informed choice is applied. And as you said, there are specific guidelines for closure, what's required, including the appeals process and due process. So absolutely, you're spot on. That's correct.
My comment on that is it's important that the consumer is provided an opportunity to exercise informed choice. And I believe it's just as important at the time of closure. And I say that because a consumer may file a grievance should they not agree with the type of closure. And this is where your case note documentation becomes really important, that it records that informed choice was provided throughout their entire VR participation, so that your case file would be complete in terms of recording this throughout their entire participation. Just a thought.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lee.
And
Absolutely.
that's kind of, I'd skipped over that part. So thank you, Lee, for bringing that up. And that when you do your two forms of contact, you always have to identify and discuss the appeals and your due process for your program, allowing them that opportunity to have access to that.
And formal letters to them so that all the documentation you have in their file demonstrates you've been forthcoming and sharing what needs to happen in the event of closure without consent.
All right, Jamie.
Sorry, I'm typing in the in the chat box. I just wanted to reiterate what Lee and Suzanne and Wayne had said, you know, document, document, document. We can't put too much in the case notes to make sure that we've captured a clear picture of what's transpired throughout the life of the case. And wow, this hour went by so fast. So just a recap, where to apply consumer informed choice. These are different areas, a list of places that you can consider applying consumer informed choice throughout the life of the case. And we've also listed the 371 reg, specifically what it refers to. And then also, if you want to look at the 361, if there was a question you might want to read up a little more on specifically that area of the VR process. And I want to thank everyone. This has been a great discussion. Save the date. We have a talking circle on December 16th. We're going to just talk about the last two webinars, today's webinar, Consumer Informed Choice, and then week before last, we had a webinar on developing policies and procedures. So if you want to join us for that talking circle, join us December 16th. And I believe that webinar on the 6th of January is not correct. So check back with us to make sure you get the correct information for January 6th, 2021. Woohoo,
Jamie?
we'll be done with
Jamie?
2020.
Jamie?
Yes,
So that talking circle,
yes.
it's actually going to be a continuation of a talking circle on the overview of the VR process. We didn't quite finish that in November, and so we're having a part 2 to finish the overview of the VR process. And we're going to talk about how to, intertwine the consumer informed choice presentation today. And because that's the last webinar talking circle of 2020, we're going to have like a little giveaway. So all those that are participating on December 16th are going to be put into a basket, their name, and we'll draw some names for some prizes that we'll ship off to you. Just a little something fun to do.
Wow.
That's awesome. Thanks, Winona. Wayne, can you go back one slide? Sharon wanted to write down some notes on that slide, she said.
Oh, shoot.
Right there, yeah.
Could you go back one more? Yes, right there. Thank you.
Sharon, this presentation and PowerPoint and if there's any supporting documentation as well as survey will be emailed out to you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so again, we've come down to that point in time where we blatantly beg you and plead with you to fill out the survey. Please, please, please fill out the survey.
Yes,
John has put it in the chat box as well. And again, we will be sending out this PowerPoint to you in the future. And then you can visit us. I just want to thank everyone
for their contributions to today's discussions. I think it's been some great information that we've discussed amongst each other, and I do appreciate your willingness to talk and discuss these topics.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the 16th.
Yes.